Today I'm going to talk about nutrition. As a nutritionist, I love following Dr. Walker. We just had this very brief conversation about yogurt, and the yogurt is such a great way to get probiotics into the diet. And he says he recommends it at 6 months. So I love hearing that, and I love, my whole career has been devoted to trying to make sense of nutrition, and nutrition is really dictated a lot by your parents. The parents of the children really set the stage. So I'm going to kind of give you a snapshot of what we see, what we think are some of the leading trends that are influencing what your kids are getting to eat through their parents' choices. So nutrition is a moving target. There's a new study every day, and as a result, people are influenced, but yet they're confused. They're totally confused because the internet provides a microphone for everyone. Every blogger. I saw a snapshot yesterday that the Food Babe probably has more followers than any legitimate credentialed individual. And she said cancer is good. She's the one that called out the substances in yoga mats, saying that this is in our food. So there's really a lot of confusion. We're confused sometimes with every study because you have to look at studies carefully. You have to evaluate, is this really from a good journal? Okay, now will this move or not? Will they move simultaneously? Okay. So it's a moving target. We really have, we have so much information out there, and it's really hard for even professionals to keep up with it. And certainly as consumers and parents, they struggle with figuring out, what do I need to pay attention to? But what we've found is that most people are defining nutrition by what it doesn't contain. So they're not looking for nutrient-rich foods, foods that are high in fiber, probiotics. They're looking at food that doesn't contain certain ingredients. So they're afraid of fat, they're afraid of sugar, they're deathly afraid of GMOs, but yet they don't understand them. Jimmy Kimmel did this man on the street and went out and asked people, what are GMOs? And nobody could answer it, but yet they say it's bad for them. So today's consumer really is an anti-science consumer. So it's sometimes a little bit more challenging to reach out to them because it's emotional. Look what consumers have done to high fructose corn syrup. They've essentially helped remove it from our food supply. And yet the chemistry of sucrose and high fructose corn syrup are almost identical. And yet it's okay for sugar to be in there, but it's not for high fructose corn syrup because it's an emotional issue and mom's got on top of it. So we really have a challenge in trying to figure out and help educate these people. But what they want fresh, natural, healthy, clean. But those words, they have a health halo associated with them, but they're not regulated. Haha, it moved. This is directly from the Food and Drug Administration's website. This is what they call the most misleading labels. You see natural and healthier at the top. There are working definitions. They're trying to figure out what to call it, but right now we're at the mercy of manufacturers, and it's plastered all over everything. It's because that's what consumers want. Made with whole grains doesn't mean that it's a whole grain. 0 grams of trans fat. You can have a half a gram of trans fat in a product and still be able to label it as 0. Lightly sweetened, not regulated. Serving sizes, luckily with the new food label, whenever that happens, we're going to see things like ice cream. Used to be a half a cup serving, now they're going to change it to 2/3 of a cup. Sodas, the serving size used to be 8 ounces, they're changing it to 12 ounces because that's the size of the can. So we're trying, even though as a nutritionist I really prefer that we advocate for proper portions, this is what America eats. And so we have to go with what people are eating and help them make sense of it, because they look at these products and they turn them over, and if it's supposed to be 2 servings, all of the nutrition information is according to 1 serving, and yet they're eating the entire package. So there's all kinds of things that might be of interest to this audience. Made with real fruit, so a lot of the kid-focused, candies, whatever, they'll say real fruit, but it's really fruit juice. And then fruit juices, oftentimes they'll say it's a single juice and it'll be a blend. So this is from the FDA that they're concerned about. Dietary guidelines, they've been providing us with evidence. We're in the 2015. I'm sure you know that the next iteration, which is now, they just opened up comment period for everyone just this past week for the 2020 guidelines, and it's for the first time it's going to be from birth to 24 months. So now we'll have information that'll be targeted to that stage of life, so from B to 24, which we think is excellent, especially with things like choline that are underappreciated and underconsumed and yet really important for brain health. But what the dietary guidelines did this time is really say, you know what, there is no such thing as one size fits all. Everybody's an individual. Everyone should have, diets that are appropriate to them. And what we need to look at are dietary patterns. Not what you eat for breakfast or lunch or dinner, but what are you eating on a regular basis? What does your week look like? That's much more important than single nutrients or single foods. So this new approach, I think, is going to be outstanding and really very helpful, because this is the Healthy Planet. This is what a typical family eats. This is a family from North Carolina in the course of a week. Sometimes called the sad American diet. This is what your patients are eating, because first of all, it's highly processed. It's a lot of fast food, a lot of sodium, a lot of fat, a lot of calories. Undernourished and overfed is how we can describe the American diet. And while obesity numbers are maybe leveling, they're still way out of proportion. So we have a lot of work to do. And one of the trends is towards vegetarianism and veganism, which is an excellent trend because it follows what the 2015 dietary guidelines also advocates, is that is a plant-based diet. It doesn't mean you can't have animal products. It means you should eat more plant foods in your diet. Foods that are closer to the earth, those are the ones that are less processed. The ones that have not gone through too much processing. Well, because we can't eat everything from the earth. It has to be processed sometimes minimally. I mean, milk is processed. So vegetarians, it's excellent. It's plant forward. There's different types of vegetarians. The lacto-ovo includes milk and eggs. So if you can include milk and eggs in the diet, it can be a totally complete diet and really not require much in terms of supplementation if it's carefully chosen. And if you just have milk, it's maybe a little bit more difficult. Most people don't just do eggs. But it's the vegans that are really a challenge for children. I mean, as an adult, you're not growing anymore. It's fine, and we can fill in those gaps with nutrients. But growing children, it's really difficult for them to be vegans and to be able to meet all of their nutritional needs. In fact, about a year or so ago in Italy, they proposed a law that parents that raised their children vegan could go to jail if they came down with some sort of a disease. So it's from 1 to 4 years in jail. Now, I don't know whether they really put people in jail, but I think it's a great idea that they're saying, that they're trying to make it a political point that being a vegan as a child is dangerous. It might be a fad, but there's a lot of nutrients that are of concern. So if a child is a vegetarian, well, the area of emphasis has to be on protein. They have to get enough protein. So nuts and eggs and legumes and soy products and dairy, are excellent if they'll consume them. It's the calories. We want to make sure they get enough calories, but you can get a lot of calories from junk, from chips and soda and candy, and they all fit in a vegan diet. So, just because it's vegan or it's vegetarian does not mean it's healthy. Iron and zinc tend to be a problem with these diets, not getting enough of it. B12 is only in animal products, so you have to have animal products to get vitamin B12. So it's absolute essential nutrient to supplement if you're not eating any animal products. Vitamin D and calcium, well, those are nutrients of concern for everyone, adults and children alike. I mean, and each iteration of the dietary guidelines has reinforced the importance of these. They're called nutrients of concern because we don't get enough of them. Omega-3s, the body can't make them. You've got to supply them. Healthy fats, are really important, and healthy fats are probably one of the best ways to fill in those nutrient gaps to help get more calories with something that has nutritional goodness. But supplements are almost essential depending on diets. I think supplements, I'm a food first, we as dietitians always say that, but yet whose diet is perfect? And I try to eat a really healthy diet, but I still take supplements, to fill in those gaps. So I'm a proponent, and I think the more restrictive your diet is, the more likely it is that you need to take those supplements. But fortified foods have really come across, and there's a lot of foods out there that have vitamin D added to them, calcium. So they're filling in some of those nutrients of concern, but you don't typically see B12 as one of those fortifications. So fiber, and we're going to have a talk about fiber, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but fiber can be a concern in these diets. While it's also a nutrient of concern because most of us don't get enough, when you have a plant-based diet exclusively, you tend to have a very high fiber diet, which is not always easily digested, can cause some GI complications, and sometimes because of so much fiber, you can bind up some nutrients and render them unavailable. So fiber becomes an issue in the vegan and the vegetarian diet, but I won't steal Marie's thunder and talk much more about it, other than I know from Dr. Walker that fiber is an important piece of the diet to help in terms of the microbiota. So, vegetarian diet goals, I say see a dietitian. I think that's the most important thing, to just make sure that your patients they don't have those gaps, and I think we can really help them. But, when you pull out animal products, what are you replacing it with? You have to make them think like that. You can't be replacing it with junk, because that can happen. You need a wide variety. You need snacks. Snacks and meals so that the kids can get all the calories they need for growth. It's the energy that's a real concern. Nut butters, I think, are great. Peanut butter, almond butter, all those kinds of, we like to look at foods that have nutritional goodness that also taste good and kids like. When you combine foods, certain combinations of foods will enhance absorption and utilization. So iron and vitamin C are two of those. So if you eat an egg with a glass of orange juice, you can help increase the absorption of the iron. So one last point about these vegetarian diets, when they occur in teenagers, it might be worth taking a look at the potential for eating disorders. This is a Facebook group of vegan moms that have thousands of followers that are trying to advocate people raise their kids vegan. And, there's not a problem with it as long as you have some medical intervention and somebody's looking over your shoulder to make sure you're doing it right. So if they want a vegan diet, Old Ways, if you're not familiar with Old Ways, that's the Old Ways Preservation Trust out of Boston. They have a great pyramid that kind of helps figure out where and give some guidance. They have good information on their website. Soy products tend to be a really good place here in a vegan diet because there are fortified, some with B12, not many. But we really have to consider the fact that supplements are essential for this group. One of the questions y'all submitted was about soy. So is, soy, when parents say no soy and they want to put a child on a vegan diet, that becomes really hard because soy products are, you can get the kind of fake hamburgers and fake sausage and fake foods that are made from tofu or textured vegetable proteins. But when you pull those out, it's of concern that you're going to get enough protein. Right here at Emory, Dr. Omar Kuchak just wrote an editorial about, North American women not being concerned about the phytoestrogen. So most of the concern to do with soy has to do with the isoflavones, and that they act as estrogens in the body. They're really plant estrogens. According to this editorial in Cancer, it is not a concern that the studies have borne out that soy is safe. That's one thing to point to your patients. I would rather push them off from having a vegan diet and get them to drink milk and eat eggs. You know, those are two of the highest biological value proteins in the diet, and they really matter. And you know, kids are not little adults. I mean, they have very different nutritional needs than adults do. So it's important that we learn from history, and we know when they were on macrobiotic diets, the problems that we had, and we've had studies of kids who were way too low in fat when the low fat rage was going. So parents take hold of something and sometimes go extreme with it, and so we have to try to really use what we've learned in the past and try to get them a little bit more centric. And if they want their kids to be vegans, well, maybe they'll settle for being vegetarians, hopefully. So this is the current eating pattern, and the line down the center is where we should be. The intake below are the gold bars. So you see vegetables and fruits and grains and dairy and protein and oils. We don't get enough of those. This is a snapshot from age 1. From age 1 on, from the dietary guidelines. We're woefully shy in all of these foods. So a pattern that's vegetarian would fill in, you know, several of these. The bars on the right are in excess. So we get too much added sugars, too much saturated fat, too much sodium, and our diet really needs to improve dramatically. And a vegetarian diet can really help that. And you know, we need to eat more fruits and vegetables. All of us do in this room. I mean, none of us really eat enough of what we're supposed to. The top source of calories that age 2 years and older, that means all your patients and yourself. Grain-based desserts, that's cakes and cookies and pies, that's number one. That's the number one source of calories. It's really kind of sad. You wonder why we're obese. You take a look at this. Yeast breads, chicken, sodas and energy drinks and sports drinks. You know, they all masquerade. They have a lot of calories from sugar, mostly sugar. And pizza. Not that any of these are bad foods in that total dietary pattern, but by themselves they can cause problems. Picky eaters, about 20% are. They have food jags, which, you know, hopefully they grow out of. We, you know, try to use the multivitamin as a way to say, okay, fill in the nutrient gaps, don't worry, they'll get tired of eating peanut butter every day. We try to offer good, nutritious solutions and get kids involved. Being involved sometimes helps. You know, Michelle Obama and her vegetable gardens, you know, kids get in the dirt and they see how things are grown. They're just a little bit more curious, and, you know, they play with their food. And, you know, there's a lot of pediatricians who say the first foods is just put them out and let kids smell them and touch them and get it all over their hair and really get that experience of them, and helps with those first diets to create a desire for good, healthy foods. I think it's best if you get those nutritious foods in first while there's still an appetite. But food jags are different from food fads, and the food fads are what are really concerning with the moms today. Whatever the diet du jour is, and you know, it's paleo and it's crazy fad diets that moms go on, and dads, caretakers, complaining about how much they weigh and what they look like. I mean, they're creating these situations at home that are really very influential, and kids pick up on everything that you say. So we really want to discourage, if mom and dad, the caretakers, want to be on special diets, do it, but feed the family in a healthy way. Be that role model, and, you know, serve up healthy food, bring the healthy food in, and zip your mouth when it comes to how you feel about your hips, your stomach, you know, how much you weigh, and save it for your girlfriends, not for your children, because they really are very vulnerable to their parents and the constant changes of diets and what's going on in the house. Restrictive diets don't work. Got it. And especially for children. Here's where I think there's a trend is in the beverages. Have you looked at the milk beverages lately? Good heavens, I mean, and they're not milk. Only dairy is milk. All of them are milk-like beverages, and you have to look at the label because some of them have very little protein, don't have any calcium, are not fortified with vitamin D like all dairy. So I'm a huge proponent of dairy, and if you can't tolerate it, there's lactose-free, there's this new Fairlife that's ultra-filtered, delicious, and really low in lactose. So there's options out there for parents other than all these other beverages, and there's nothing wrong with those other beverages, but some of them are sweetened and there's lots of extra calories. And the thing about beverages, you have to think about how they displace other nutrients. So if you're drinking soda and sports drinks, does that mean you're not drinking milk? So it's an important piece of the diet that, milk delivers so many essential nutrients. It's why it's still in the dietary guidelines. 3 servings a day, whether it's yogurt or milk or cheese, it's important. Common problems with beverages, what goes in the bottle and soda, those alternative ones. Everyone here knows about the limits on 100% fruit juice. It's better to eat a piece of fruit than to drink the juice, but yet there's nothing wrong with juice. 100% fruit juice is good in limited amounts. Low in non-fat, we want kids to drink more water. And just look at the sweetened beverages. They're extra calories. It's like a treat. And that's how you have to look at those beverages. Here's where we get the added sugars in our diet, and you'll see most of them is coming from the soda. Energy drinks, which people think are healthy, but a lot of them are loaded with sugar. Sports drinks, so we get more there than anywhere else. So some people are worried about, look at where ready-to-eat cereals are. It's a small little section. Something like that, it's a vehicle food. You put milk on it and you get kids to eat it. It's a whole grain. It's not, there might be some sugar on there, but when sugar helps them eat more nutritious foods, it has a role. Organic, hot topic, luckily it's labeled. It's well labeled so that if you're concerned about GMOs, then anything organic cannot be GMO. So that's a way to do it. But my point is always, it's way more important to eat more fruits and vegetables than to worry about whether they're organic. Organic's great. If you can afford it, it's a personal choice, but they're not more nutritious. They're the same, and it's more important to eat them. GMOs, there's a stamp you'll find on some products that says NonGMO Project. It's not regulated. It's like healthy and fresh. It is not a regulated term. The National Academy of Sciences came out with a report last year. This is an objective report, not from Monsanto or any company, and said, we've been eating them for 20 years, and the evidence is they're safe. They've been in our food supply. They are safe. So I don't know what it's going to take. Bill Gates just came out and said they're safe. So maybe people will listen to him as opposed to credentialed experts. But it's a hot topic, and it's driven by moms and emotion and a lack of understanding. And there's only 8 or 9 products that are GMO. Gluten-free, luckily the label's out there. So if you really have celiac brew, or you really do need to limit the amount of gluten in your diet, it now is trustworthy and on the label. Processed food, so just elucidation on processed food. It's a spectrum. You can take something that's highly processed and, like Twinkies, that will last forever in the package and who knows what's in that. But then milk is processed and baby carrots are processed. So we can't villainize all processed foods, and they don't all have emulsifiers in them. Some of them it's just they have to be processed. So they're not horrible. You can't get beans in a can without processing them, and beans in the can are really good. They're good, they're inexpensive, they're a great source of protein. So just when we say process, you have to think of the broader spectrum. This is the sweet balance of trying to find those nutrient-dense foods that do have some sugar in them. It's okay to have some sugar. Our advice, look at the total package. Look at the diet. That's the My Plate that has not changed, but that's sort of a nice visual for your patients to see, okay, is half my plate fruits and vegetables? Do I have that dairy on the side? And that's not the alternative dairy, that's the real dairy. Quick assessment, and when you're looking at your patients, what are they taking in? How's their appetite? Is there a variety of foods? We like to say, fill your grocery cart with a rainbow of colors. So all those different colors basically show a variety of different nutrients and phytochemicals, so that's an easy way to make sure they're getting a broad spectrum of good nutrients. Supplements, depending on the diet, they may be necessary. Are there any strange behaviors that should be red flags? The parents are in the driver's seat, so they're the ones that are, we want them to stock the house, we want them to have the good food there, and put some limits on those sugary drinks and sweets. Cooking more at home, if we could get people to cook more at home, you're in control. You get to determine what's in there, what the portion size is, how much salt, how much sugar, how much butter. Eating at home, if we can get people back home, it really will be beneficial in terms of having healthier diets. And eating together, the benefits of eating together as a family, there are numerous studies that show kids do better. It's that eye-to-eye contact, it's sitting down, it's having conversations. These are important. We've even seen studies that show kids who have family meals do better at school. So family meals have a lot of value and really can help kids eat better. There are lower rates of obesity, so there's all kinds of benefits. It doesn't have to be a big, long meal. It just needs to be together. So parents have an important role. I have to hurry up because I know I'm out of time. But your job as pediatricians is so fundamental to try to influence these moms, try to point them to places like WebMD where, we have really good information that is we're not doing clickbait to get sensational headlines, the kinds of blogs. They follow these bloggers that really are of concern because they're not experts. So with that, I thank you very much.